Welcome to Michael Potts F1, everything Formula One, but from a photographer's point of view. For today's vlog, we're going to do something a little bit different. I've got with me the lovely Stephanie Jarvis from the Shadow Diaries, and we're going to have a discussion about following one's dreams.
And racing cars.
And celebrities.
And Formula One.
And everything track related.
What I love is the fact that Michael has made his dream come true. Michael and I met so many years ago. You were only 23 and you always wanted to be a Formula One photographer. And it seems impossible. How do you get into it? Where do you start? And you've actually achieved that goal now, and it's incredible. You're now a full-time Formula One photographer. And I want to talk to you about how you made your dream come true.
It's taken a very long time. I started enjoying Formula One, I think the first season I remember as a child was 1984. It was when Niki Lauda managed to beat Alan Prost by half a point. I was a Niki Lauda fan because he had a girl's name, and I thought that was brilliant. I was hooked ever since. As a family, we used to watch the races every Sunday. My dad was a very, very passionate Formula One fan. And I think that's how I got into it.
It was something the two of you did together.
I always wanted to be involved, but I never thought that it would be possible. The first race I went to was actually with you. I don't know if you remember, we went to Monaco.
But we hadn't paid for me to go to the race. And the only place that I could afford to spend time in Monaco, this is really funny, because we were actually strapped for cash back then, was McDonald's. I was blown away by the noise because I was nowhere near the track. And I couldn't hear myself think. It was so loud because of the race.
Yeah, so that was in 2004. It was when they had the V10s. So these were these monster engines. And the way Monaco is laid out, it's sort of in a bowl. The Monte Carlo Bay traps the sound of these cars in it and just reverberates off the hills around.
It's just quite funny because as you're saying that, the whole building has started to reverberate here because we're directly above my cousin's carpentry workshop and he's restoring the chateau as we speak, and it all started reverberating. But it was like that and a lot louder in Monaco because of those V10s.
Yeah. So I didn't go for the full race, I just went for the practice.
But that was because you couldn't afford the full race as well.
But I didn't realise, top tip for everyone, you can watch the Monaco Grand Prix for free from one of the best vantage points. On the side of the hill, there's a space where you can look over the whole track, and it's a great vantage point and it's completely free.
So how do you get to it? How
you just
describe to people?
You walk as you're walking up towards the palace on the side of the hill overlooking the bay. So this is, if you're looking at the track, this is around the last two corners, Rascasse and Antonian Oaks.
So you could have seen the race that time if only we'd known.
Yes, but yeah, so that was where I first experienced it. I was using a film camera, but I did get a couple of good shots. A nice sort of Michael Schumacher as he's leaving the swimming pool complex.
But I think it's interesting for people to see, and I certainly find it fascinating, to see the progression of your photography.
Yes.
You know, people don't need to think, oh, I am the world's best Formula One photographer now, and if I'm not, then I mustn't get into it. You have to learn. You have to learn, and also you need the actual technology that you're using to get better. You can't start off by buying a £5,000 camera. That's impossible for most people. So you start with what you've got and you build up and you get better cameras and your skill grows with every single race that you go to. And if we look back at one of the photos that you took back in 2004 and a photo that you're taking now, you can see the difference in your skill level and also in the cameras because they've grown as well.
Yes, the older shots have a different feeling about them because they're with film and there's a different atmosphere, there's a different color balance. So all of those things plant that photograph in a time and a space.
That's valuable. That's very valuable in itself.
I had thought it might be quite interesting to go back to that stand. Maybe next year's race, I'll go back to that stand and try and recreate one of the shots.
That would be amazing. But you can see that even back then, you had the eye. You had the passion, the drive, and that imperceptible je ne sais quoi that you need, because you have to have raw talent. Now, the skill you can learn and everything else can improve, but you need that spark of talent that you had all along.
But it's also putting it in the work. So I went there as a fan, but I'd taken my camera along with me. And Whereas everyone around me was watching the cars go past. I was thinking about compositions and trying to capture something that was faster than anything I'd ever photographed before in an interesting way. I went to a lot of races as a fan, always taking my camera, always trying to find a better spot and trying to perfect the art a bit more. After that, pretty much every year I went to at least one race.
But how did you get to that stage? So how did you go from being a fan who went to all of the races, who kept honing your skill, even though you were not getting paid for it at all, but you're just getting better and better and better? How did you go from that to starting to be paid for your photography?
So my lucky break came when I went to Monaco and I got some very cool shots of the cars from above.
Okay.
I got access to a balcony. I was able to photograph the cars as they're coming up the start-finish straight. A shot of Max Verstappen particularly, his car was sparking. That was a different shot to what most of the photographers had. I started chatting to some of the photographers online who had seen my photographs and they were like, oh, that's great, where did you take it? Through those conversations, I found a magazine that needed a photographer and they sent me off to Barcelona testing the next year. So I went off to Barcelona. I realized there that there's a huge learning curve from being able to take a good picture of a car to actually being a professional photographer, because it's all very well taking a nice picture. You've got to then edit it. You've got to send it off at a timely manner. It's got to be photographed to order.
I think that one of the things I find most interesting about post-production editing as well is that I think a lot of people see editing as the part that's fake. You know, if you just click, you take a photo, that's reality and you should leave it at that. I totally disagree with that. I think that post-production is where artistry comes in. That's where the art, the creativity of the photographer and the moment in time come together, and that's what makes photography art, in my view. It's the way you see the world, because you could have 3 photographers standing in exactly the same place, taking exactly the same moment, and you will have 3 different photos because they will each put their stamp on their own photo. And that is what you've also had to learn to do, because like any artist, you're constantly finding your voice, finding your vision and sharing it with the world. So the editing process must have been quite a new thing for you to really grapple with, to get a consistency.
Yes, consistency is incredibly important.
Yes.
The reason that they hire you is that they know what they're going to expect. If I get Michael Potts, this is the kind of photographs I can expect.
Yes.
This is the quality, this is the speed.
And this is the colorway, this is the vision.
A lot of it is to do with creativity. So when I'm working for some of the press organizations, it's more about telling the story. So you're trying to find an image that conveys the message of an article that hasn't been written yet. So finding an image that can be talked about in a number of ways.
That's fascinating. I would never have thought about that side of it. I love that idea. Making an image for an article that hasn't been written yet. Do you have a type of photo that you prefer? Do you have a look that you prefer? And do you like working more in someone else's style to fit into a house style? Is that maybe more challenging, or do you like being able to put your own stamp on things?
So I set up my own set of presets in Lightroom so that I can always edit with the same consistency. What I generally do is I set a preset for a specific race. I try and have the photographs from Miami looking different to the photographs from Barcelona. They're both bright, sunny locations, but I want to tell a bit of a different story from each one.
That's so fascinating.
There are a couple of clients that I've got that want specifically creative images. So they want things that are blurred or interesting crops around faces, extreme details, kind of pushing to the edge of photography. My preference is for the creative. I love spending time trying to think about how you can make something look different. You want people to kind of stop and go, oh.
I've never seen it in that way before.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I can get that, then I think I've done my job. That, and also for people to go, wow, I really feel like I was there. Like I can feel the heat, I can feel the sound.
Yes.
They must have liked my work because they did ask me to go to a race in Baku.
Oh my goodness, Baku. Oh no, I'm getting flashbacks to Baku. I didn't go to Baku and I'm having Baku-based stress.
I thought you'd like this one.
Yeah. I'll never forget Baku, because you were here. You thought you weren't going to Baku. You didn't have your accreditation.
I didn't have my accreditation.
He was a little bit disappointed because obviously he had all this build up of having his first race to photograph officially. but instead came here. It was a bit of a consolation prize to spend some time here.
I'd been here a couple of days, but then on Tuesday, a letter arrived. Race weekend starts on Thursday, and I had to frantically book a flight. I booked the wrong flight. I had to phone Aeroflot and get it to be changed to the right flight. That was quite stressful.
He was running around like a headless chicken on a Tuesday trying to get to Baku for Thursday.
You very kindly decided to drive me to Paris.
But I had something to pick up at Chrissy's, and I thought, well, great, I'll kill two birds with one stone. I'll hire a van, take you to the airport, and pick up the headboard that I bought from the Ritz in Paris to bring back to Lalande. So we jump into the van and we drive off, and simultaneously you are having a job interview for a new proper day job.
Yes.
So Michael is on the phone having a job interview. As I was going into the toll booth, I just completely misjudged how tall the van was. And you know, there's those little dangly bits saying no vehicles over this height. I thought, oh, we can totally make that. I'm definitely lower than that. And I got halfway underneath it just before the toll and just came to a stop, scrunched as the things actually dug into the roof and started tearing a hole in the roof of the van. And Michael's on his work call going, yes, no, absolutely. The technology for F12P CCA is a language that I know very well. And he's going to me as we're stuck. I'm like, he's like, no, yeah, I can run a team in India, no problem at all. Yes, I'm still panicking. And I'm getting out, looking at the van, and we're completely stuck. And I realise, well, he can't help. He's in the middle of his interview. I'm just going to have to drive us out. And so I carried on driving. We just had as the top of the van's being ripped off. And I'm racing to Charles de Gaulle.
Because now we're late.
Now we're really late. Racing to Charles de Gaulle to get you on time. But we made it. We made it to the airport by the skin of our teeth.
Yeah.
You got on the flight to Baku, but your day carried on getting more stressful.
Yeah, because I got onto the plane and then realised that I was wearing slippers. Because we left in such a rush, I hadn't changed into shoes. So I shopped the whole race. They're quite nice slippers, but it not ideal. Race weekend starts on Thursday, but my flight only got in on Friday morning.
It turns out it's not that easy to get from Paris to Azerbaijan at the last minute.
No.
It's not a direct route.
And I arrived at the start of the session, and I really had no idea on what to do. Baku in Azerbaijan is a city circuit. It's a completely different thing. So I'm standing at this corner with a very wide angle lens on, and the cars are far in the distance with this lens. Max Verstappen crashes right in front of me. But it's about this big in the photograph.
Oh no! But I remember that whole weekend you were phoning me and you were so stressed because this was your big break. This was the moment. And you felt that you couldn't get the shots that you needed. You didn't have the correct equipment. The slippers were underperforming. And just that tension, but you never gave up.
Yeah.
You never gave up, and every day your photos got better and better and better, and you found better vantage spots. So how did the final race go?
I scurried off to the photographer's tower at the start of the race. This is a tower that looks all the way down the main grid. And it's an amazing place to be because there's so much banter. Everyone's quite funny and everyone's making jokes, and it's the best commentary that you're going to get at the start of a Formula One race. I go off, I do my shots. I started to make my way back to the pits because at the end of the race, you want to photograph the driver celebrating. And I was running a little bit late, but I thought, I'll have one more go at photographing from the tower. So I climbed up there, and the two Red Bulls were coming towards me, and I'm photographing. And then all of a sudden, there's this big cloud of smoke, and Max Verstappen hits Daniel Ricciardo. And the two cars, teammates, collide into each other, spin out, there's sparks. It's an amazing crash. I got the aftermath. I got the two drivers climbing out of the cars, not talking to each other, sulking off. This could have been the story of the season. And I looked around and there wasn't a single other photographer there. And I thought, wow, I've just landed my biggest scoop. Had no idea what to do with it. I literally had no idea. I was sitting holding gold and didn't know what to do. So sent off my pictures to my editor. He gave me some people to talk to. I managed to sell the images to quite a few places, but it was amazing. Being so excited and then realizing that I hadn't prepared. I didn't know.
You didn't have the contacts. You had the photos, you didn't have the contacts.
I had no idea that I'd be in that position. There was actually one other photographer who got a shot from a little bit further up, but it was just the two of us.
But that very, very first race, you found yourself in exactly the right spot, exactly the right time.
Yeah, and it was partly because I didn't know what I was doing, because all the other photographers had left already and were all
making their way to the end.
Yeah, and I was the last one.
So it's luck in life, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think every big success in life comes through luck and hard work, luck and dedication.
Yeah.
And that's what you've had. You've had luck and being in the right place at the right time, which happened to you a lot of times actually in Formula One, but you had the dedication from long before you actually became a professional photographer for it. You were already putting in the work. But that first race was hard, not just because of the race to get to Paris, the crash on the way, a job interview at the same time, the fact that you're doing it in your slippers and you're arriving late and you just don't know the track. There is a much darker reason why it was very hard for you to have your first big break in Baku, and it was something that you had to get over. And that's because Michael's father died a few years before that. They were so close, and obviously I'm tearing up just thinking about it because it's your father who got you into Formula One. So it was hugely important for you to be able to photograph Formula One. But Michael, a few years previously, had been in Baku when his father died, and we couldn't get hold of you. I was trying to phone constantly, your mother was trying to phone constantly, and that's where you first heard the news. And instead of flying back as you planned to Lalande, you had to find a way of getting from Baku to South Africa to be with your family.
Yeah, it was difficult going back. So when I heard the news, I was with a very good friend, and I was quite shell-shocked because my dad was very young and very healthy. I kind of walked around the streets waiting for my flight with this sort of shell-shocked disbelief. And then going back, all those memories came flooding back every time I walked around. And it was tinged with this feeling that he'd have been so happy and so proud of what I was doing and so excited and so wanting to talk about it. And he wasn't there to be able to share that moment with. That was very hard. The whole way through, I've heard his voice. So
yes.
Whenever I was chastising myself for having the wrong lens, he'd go, just be calm, just enjoy it.
Yes. And he's right, because when you enjoy what you're doing, that's when you get the best results as well.
Yeah.
When you put aside the stress and you realize you're doing something because you love it. He'd be so proud of you. I mean, I can't describe how proud he would be.
Yeah, that was the first race.
Yes, so it's quite some start.
Yeah.
And you've gone from strength to strength since then.
I was able to go to the last few races last year. That was quite an amazing experience because it was towards the end of last year when things were starting to open up in a small way. We could fly. We'd have to get tested 2 or 3 times during the course of a race weekend. At one event, I actually got tested twice on the same day. And I was able to be there at the end of the season, which is one of the best seasons we've had in Formula One for many years. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton were fighting for the title, going down to the last lap of the last race. And being able to stand on the final corner as the checkered flag went down was a phenomenal experience.
It is never boring, is it? Because then you were in Saudi Arabia at the same time as bombs going off around you.
Yeah, we've had terrorist attacks, we've had close shaves with crashes.
How close were you to the crash at the British Grand Prix?
I could have been a lot closer than I was. Luckily, I spoke to a very nice marshal beforehand and he managed to direct me to a safer spot. But that was quite scary because it was a big crash at the start. Cars were flown up in the air and flew directly towards us. You're photographing looking through the lens and there's a bit of a disconnection when that happens. It's almost like you're watching it on TV and you don't realise the danger you're in.
Yes, because you're seeing it through a screen, but it's right there and it's coming towards you.
And it wasn't to the moment where the guy next to me goes, "Watch out, everyone, duck," because there was shrapnel and bits of stone flying everywhere, and it happened so quickly. It was 6 seconds. Paddock and the grid are the 2 places to see celebrities.
Because you didn't know who any of them were at first as well. And when you started taking the photos professionally, you knew that you had to take photos of celebrities, and this is where your girlfriend's been a massive help,
Yes.
because Ruth was able to look at your photos and say, oh, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so, oh, so-and-so, but now you're learning as well, and that's another part of it, which I think people don't think of. They think, okay, a Formula One photographer has to take photos of cars, but there's much more to it than that.
One of the first races I did professionally was the Barcelona race in 2018. I had spotted Ed Sheeran. No one else had spotted Ed Sheeran. I was on him. I had photographed him from the back, from the front, meeting some of the teams. He was definitely Ed Sheeran. I got him on the grid. I got him posing with people, and no one else seemed to have cottoned onto this. So after the race, I send the shots off to Ruth and go, "Hey, I've got Ed Sheeran," and she goes, "No, that's the guy from Harry Potter."
Ron Weasley. So you were all excited thinking that you had Ed Sheeran at Formula
Exclusive.
One. Absolutely exclusive. The only photographer who'd spotted him, and you had Ron Weasley.
Yeah.
Nice.
Still great actor.
Yeah, absolutely. And great photos.
Ron, if you're watching, I love your work. This year we've had Tom Cruise, Keanu Reeves, Matthew McConaughey, loads of people. It's phenomenal. Incredible sports stars in Miami, models in Monaco. It's been brilliant.
So you've enjoyed taking that side of the photography as well?
Yeah, because especially on the grid, only a few people get to go on the grid. Generally, they're involved in Formula One, so they're the mechanics and the drivers and the team personnel. There are some fans, but generally it's selected celebrities. So they have a lot more space to walk around and act natural. Tom Cruise really does smile that much in real life.
So what does the future hold for you? Now that you've quit your job, this is it, you're a full-time Formula One photographer.
There's going to be a lot of travel, which is very exciting. We've got 3 races in Europe in succession. There's Belgium, Netherlands, and Monza in Italy. And then there's exotic locations like Singapore, Texas, Mexico City, and Abu Dhabi. In between that, hopefully some trips to Lalande, but I'm also part of an exhibition in Burgundy in October.
Yes, Michael's been asked to be one of the official photographers of the Paulet in Burgundy, which is where they launch the wines of the seas and have a big wine festival. So we'll all be going down to see your exhibition there. That was very exciting. Your photography is really blossoming on all fronts, and you've got your new YouTube channel, this channel.
Yeah, and hopefully this channel brings you a little bit of the Netflix Drive to Survive type of vibe, but all the way through the year, not just at the end.
And from a photographer's perspective.
We're going to do some videos explaining how Formula One works, some of the stuff that's not necessarily that obvious, like a lot of the jargon. I talk about FP1 or Q3. What do those mean? So I'll do a whole video soon about some of the jargon and the terms, as well as how the points work and how the championship started. Maybe looking back at some of the historic races. So not only will there be previews of races, reviews of races, but lots of other interesting things along the way.
Congratulations, Michael. Honestly, I'm bursting with pride. Cheers. To making your dreams come true in life and to never giving up on them.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. When you have a passion, when you have something that drives you, just believe that you can do it. It took me 15 years before I got my break, but I don't think I ever lost the passion or the dedication to do it. And that opportunity is going to come.
Never give up.
Just
but
believe.
Be prepared as well.
Yeah, don't wear slippers.